Welcome to the Life of a Marketer podcast. Today's guest is Chandler Quinton. Chandler is a video expert, but Chandler, I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us about who you are and what you do.
Sure thing. Glad to be here. My name is Chandler Quinton, like you mentioned. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Video Brothers, and our whole thing is specializing in fun, really engaging video ads and advertising systems specifically for the B2B market, meaning tech companies, platforms, SaaS, you name it. If you're in B2B, you may or may not have heard of us by now, but you certainly will because we're making tons of video ads and they're all over LinkedIn and CTV. So that's what we do. We just have fun and make awesome content.
Very good. Awesome. Awesome. I'm really looking forward to having you as a guest today because we do a lot of video advertising. All right. So what's the best thing about being in the marketing industry for you?
I think for me, and I can definitely speak for my team and other marketers out there, I think one of the best things is that, as professional marketers and advertisers, we actually have the ability to transform businesses as well as transform how marketing works in general, which is really amazing. I mean, anytime you can work with a client and help them grow their revenue, whether it's by a small amount or a large amount, I mean, that's career changing stuff for your clients on the other end. It means promotions. It means, their teams are growing. They're able to bring on more resources. And if you can transform a company with the creativity, the strategy, the thinking that you put into it on the marketing side, I mean, there's no better reward than that. And that's actually why we specialize in B2B. We have a lot of really awesome up and coming companies in the B2B space. A lot of companies chomping at the bit at larger competitors, and helping them out in any way is kind of what gets us out of bed in the morning, for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So what sort of advice do you offer to those that are in the marketing industry right now?
So a lot of people actually ask me this all the time, and there's probably a few things that come to mind. The number one thing that we talk about often is this kind of idea of reshaping how you think about your marketing in general. A lot of marketers tend to fall into the trap of not really considering the fact that the audiences on the other end of their advertising and marketing, they're human beings. They have thoughts, feelings, emotions. They're people. They do the day-to-day things that we all do. So when you cruise around on LinkedIn, you see a lot of marketing that's kind of more geared towards a business versus the human being on the other end with the pain point that you solve. That's kind of the one thing we always encourage people to start rethinking about and putting more top of mind, because the more relevant and humanized you can make your marketing, the better. So that's one piece of advice. I know it sounds obvious to a lot of us and some of us, but I talk to dozens and dozens of professional B2B marketers on a regular basis, and they all kind of sit back and go, you know what, you are right. We need to think about our advertising more in the lens of the human being on the other end. And that's just like a nice little mental shift to make. And the other piece of advice is to take swings. Marketing there's no right or wrong answer in marketing. I think a lot of marketers would agree with me on that. There's playbooks you can follow, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then there's ideas you have that sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But the whole idea is to try and test and learn. And if you're not doing that, then you're not moving the ball forward. And you need to be able to figure out what works and double down on that and kill what doesn't. And that's really, that those little bits of advice that, again, they sound obvious, and we all kind of know these things, but it's just saying it enough times where people actually embody it is kind of what's important.
All right. So this is really, really interesting what you just talked about, business to business. So for those of you who don't know, marketing for businesses whose client are other businesses. This is something that I hadn't really thought about. You just mentioned it because I don't do as much B2B marketing. So you're saying that the video ads that you run that are targeting B2B, you maybe shouldn't focus on the business problem as much as you should be focusing on the actual people. Is that what you're
Yeah, essentially any professional in the buyer's committee for whatever product or service your B2B business might sell, that's a human being on the other end that has the pain, or they should have the pain if they're in your target audience that your business sells. If you speak just to the business side of things, you're not really connecting the dots in that human being's, emotional point of view about what you do. That's why we see a lot of advertising with so many features and benefits, and our product can do this and this and this and this and this. But when folks don't know who you are, and they're not even exactly sure what pain point you solve, that doesn't typically resonate unless they know who you are. That type of marketing works really well at the bottom of funnel when people are just about ready to, cross that bridge and book a phone call or a demo with your team. But in the early onset of the marketing, especially with unaware audiences, um, they need to be approached like they're the human with the problem, right? So, for example, one of our clients, Car Data, they're a vehicle tax reimbursement platform, really cool company. And normally you might sell that by just listing out all the features that this program might do or the software might do. But what they have done is with us is we've marketed to the pain point of the human being that actually buys the software, meaning tracking the vehicle reimbursement programs is chaotic. So we need to bring that chaos to life. Tracking vehicle reimbursement programs and measuring them is complicated, and there's old-fashioned ways of doing it. So we need to bring that to life. And when you can kind of bring the problem to life, especially with intangible products, like a lot of businesses sell software, right? How do you make that tangible? You got to make it relatable and create a situation around it where the audience goes, oh man, that company, they totally get me. They totally understand my pain. This is exactly what I've been thinking about. And boom, now they're solution aware, and now they're into your sphere as an audience, and they'll do some digging to figure out what you have to offer.
Chandler, not all of our audience is going to know the pyramid from Eugene Schwartz, problem aware, unaware.
Sure.
Maybe explain your process of how you build out how you think through building out your video ads for your clients.
Sure. So, I mean, the really cool thing about B2B is I would say 95% of B2B companies that at least we interact with are very in tune with who their audience is. They know who these people are. They know their job titles. They know their job functions. They know roughly the personas around these folks, which is awesome because that's kind of the information you need to figure out how to make problems relatable to them. So, our advertising usually it's a full funnel approach, but it always starts with that unaware audience, right? So when we think about creating advertising for our clients, it's all about bringing that pain point into the upfront, very early, very visible, and in a fun way. Because we want to catch people's attention. We want your company and brand to stand out, and we want people to remember essentially one big thing from any ad they see. If you try to have the audience remember two things, three things, you're already asking too much of them, especially if they're unaware and if they're unaware of the problem they might have, and they might be unaware of the solution that you have. And we need to cross that bridge to get them to become aware of not only the problem they have and very cognizant of it, but also the solution that you have to offer. It's a tricky balance to play. A lot of businesses, a lot of marketers will kind of make assumptions that the audience might know how to even classify their solution, and some don't. And that's just the reality of B2B. There's niche products, right? There's very segmented products and services out there. So you need to be able to really get people to understand the why, the big why of these businesses. And usually that's a good starting point, is to focus on the why and then extrapolate from there and figure out how to bring that to life, if that makes sense. Happy to elaborate more. You gotta string me
Sure.
along.
No, let's unpack it a little bit. When you say that you're trying to create something that catches people's attention, so you start with a problem, that you're gonna talk about and agitate, and describe to us some ways that you're doing this with your hooks. Like, what's your creative process for coming up with something that's going to get people's attention? Give us some tips on that.
Sure. I mean, a great video has a couple common pillars, and I think this applies to all sorts of videos. And it also applies to, B2C and D2C and e-com and all sorts of things. I mean, it's very common, but you need some sort of visual lead in and a hook, something that really catches the audience off guard, right? They're scrolling around, especially in our world on LinkedIn all day. They're seeing a lot of boring stuff. They're seeing infographics and lead gen forms and these complicated diagrams or just like weird stock photos. And you really need something that's eye catching. So that's why when you scroll and see a normal ad, you'll see a computer fly on screen and some ones and zeros all around. That's not really interesting. But if you look at one of our clients like Loxo, you scroll and you see Bigfoot. Wait, what's Bigfoot doing on LinkedIn? What's an alien doing on LinkedIn? And then you watch the ad and you find out that Loxo is a recruiting platform and they're finding the elusive candidate. And of course, Bigfoot and aliens are elusive. So it's kind of that funny, like, oh, yeah, that's clever that they did that. And boom, now you know that they're recruiting software for headhunters and recruiters. So having that hook to rope people in and get those view rates up really high so you can capture audiences for retargeting is the number one thing that makes an ad at least work fundamentally from a platform perspective. But within that ad, you need to, like you said, you need to highlight the pain, you need to agitate it a little bit, almost bring it over the top, right? For example, back to car data, is tracking vehicle reimbursement a thing that's going to keep these people up at night? Probably not. So you kind of need to exaggerate it a little bit more to make it seem more chaotic than it is and kind of have the audience laugh at the situation, go, yeah, I totally know what that's like. Yeah, like that's kind of what you're going for. So you agitate the problem, you make it relatable. And then of course you got to introduce the brand with one big thing. Now, of course, these B2B companies have all sorts of value and services and features and benefits and all these great things they do, but jamming that into a 15-second ad or a 30-second ad is near impossible. So you really need to capstone these ads with a strong call to action and a tagline that focuses around the why, right? So Loxo, replace 10 tools with one and find the best candidates in the world. Things like that, of course, there's a lot more to Loxo, but that's the main thing that can hook people into the door and get them aligned with what the brand is. And then from there, once they're interested, that's kind of where the magic happens.
Elaborate. What kind of magic?
Well, when you're using fun ads specifically, fun and having fun and smiling and nodding your head and chuckling, that does a lot of things in your brain that most of us don't even realize. It triggers dopamine, which triggers, synapses in your brain to fire, and you're actually creating memories and remembering things. That's why we can all recall the Geico lizard and Jake from State Farm and Mayhem from Farmers or Progressive or whatever brand it is. We know it's an insurance company, right? That's because you laughed at their ads, you smiled at them. It's a joy to watch. They don't really bother you too much because you kind of know what to expect. Something entertaining is going to happen. And being memorable is the number one thing, because especially in my world of B2B, we have sales cycles that could be months, years. It could be even longer than that. And you want your audience to be in that meeting, to be in that conversation, to be thinking about a problem and go, oh, I know what solves this. It's car data, it's Loxo, it's Good United, it's these companies that you recognize and remember because their advertising has kind of followed you along in a fun way, and it's subconsciously triggered those like dopamine hits to get you to actually remember it when the time is right. So that's kind of what the magic is being memorable. A lot of marketers will just strive for performance and try to hit certain metrics and numbers, but at the end of the day, making an ad that's unforgettable is the best metric you could ever try to hit. Unfortunately, there's not really a checkbox or a little column in any of these platforms that tell you if your ad was memorable or not. That comes through on the other side when customers arrive to you excited, more informed, and genuinely curious about your business. So a lot of magic happens just by simply being memorable and getting people to have some sort of emotional response. So you can trigger those magical brain chemicals to remember your brand just that much more than most of your other competitors who are likely going to be pretty boring,
Right. Awesome. Wow. Thanks for sharing all that, Chandler. That's awesome information for us, for everyone. We're going to switch gears a little bit because this is a shorter podcast
Sure.
and move on. What are some other successful people in marketing like yourself that you'd like to acknowledge that should be on the podcast?
I have a few favorites. I'm a little biased because they are my clients. But given what we do, we have a lot of fun with our clients. We get to know them very, very well, and we help invigorate these teams become even better creatives. So when we meet people that are creative already and we get to make them better and they make us better, those become kind of my best friends and people I would recommend a lot of people look out and listen for. So I'll list four people that come to mind. We have Sam and Lex from Loxo. They are awesome people. You can check them out on LinkedIn. They're very easy to find. And they are kind of the juggernauts of the brand over there. And they were the ones responsible for them taking a big swing with us at Video Brothers with their Bigfoot and Alien ads. They're awesome to talk to, very knowledgeable, not only about marketing, but also about business and business strategy. Very cool people. Your audience will love them. Adam from I Donate. He's a client of ours that was actually from a company called Good United. We just launched ads for them, and Adam had moved on to a different business towards the end of it, but he was instrumental at kind of bringing this fun mentality to the nonprofit space, and he's doing amazing things over at I Donate in a similar space. And also, he's very involved in the podcast world with the Don't Be a SaaS podcast, which is geared towards SaaS companies. It's really fun. And he's an awesome person to talk to. He understands messaging and positioning very, very well. And then finally on my list is one of my favorite growth marketers around. His name is Devash. He's from Car Data. He is just an exceptional thinker in terms of brand and brand strategy. He came to us kind of knowing that the future of their business was going to be that brand IP that makes you memorable. And he really championed that with his C-suite and the board to make the fun ads happen, which were very successful for them. And he just has a really good, kind of grip on how growth marketing and growth works. I think he is actually head of growth at Car Data. So he's the fourth person on my list. An awesome, awesome individual to talk to. Actually, I have one more if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Scott Bear from Lenore. They're a branding agency. I mean, Scott is one of the most intelligent, well-versed gentlemen I know in branding, and he is very, very thoughtful. He's got a lot of thought leadership and educational content out there. He's an educator himself with branding, and he's just so thoughtful with branding. And if anyone ever has any questions about brand in general, why it's important, how you do it, Scott would be the person to talk to. He's an amazing human being. So that kind of rounds out my top five right now. Hopefully that's helpful for you and your audience.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So we've got one more question for fun to end the podcast. What is the oldest technology you remember using?
Well, I was very fortunate. My dad was a CIO of a private company. So when I was growing up way back in the late 80s, early 90s, I was exposed to technology fairly early. The first computer interface I ever used was MS-DOS. I remember typing in CD/Doom to open up the game Doom that was, installed via a hard disk. But one of my favorite ones that I always laugh about, and it's really easy to age people when you talk about it, is I don't know if you remember, but way back in the day when you needed to put a CD in your computer when CDs first came out, you actually had to put it into a CD case and it had to lock in, and then you had to push that into the computer. And it was just like the most bizarre scenario, and they'd get stuck and broken, and they'd do all sorts of things and they'd fall apart. And it was just this odd case that you had to put the CD in. And I just looked before this podcast because I knew the question was coming up. And you can buy these things, but they're like $100 for four of them on eBay. Like, these things are very rare these days. And I don't know if you remember that, but man, I remember trying to get CDs out of it and put another one in. It was just a big mess. That was a lot.
And then they came out with a tray, and it was revolutionary.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, we can hit the button and the tray comes out. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So
and then
those
that would break too.
Yeah, exactly. I love old technology. I think it's really fun and very nostalgic. Actually, one of our upcoming clients is probably one of the most nostalgic brands in tech. I can't tell you who they are, but when our ads come out for them, I think everyone will have a chuckle at just the fact that this company is still around. And you guys are going to love it. So I love that you asked that question because it's very relevant to what we're working on right now. So
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome, Chandler. Thanks for sharing on this podcast. I know I learned some things. I really appreciate you being on. Everybody, the Life of a Marketer podcast, we stream it on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 something. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Life of a Marketer podcast, or you can email me, jared@hiveleadmarketing.com. I'll put you on our email list and you will get our podcasts whenever they do come out. Chandler, once again, thank you. This has been an excellent podcast.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.